Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
After Zoomies at the dog park, it's time for Drive Up at Target. In goes a big bag of kibble and one squeaky chicken toy for the good boy. Drive Up that's ready when you are, only in the Target app. Just tap Target.
Gatorade is the #1 proven electrolyte blend designed to hydrate better than water. So you can lose more sweat and raise your game. Gatorade, is it in you?
Hi there, Duke fans. Episode 112 of the DBR podcast. Sorry, of DBR Bites. I'll get it right. Jason Evans here with you, and my buddy Donald Wine is joining me as well. Donald, we got so much stuff, so many little tiny things. There wasn't anything big enough that we were like, oh, we need to do an episode like today. So we waited, and now we've acquired a pile so large that we're going to do this actually over 2 separate episodes, both of which we'll record now, one of which will come in your feed as soon as you're listening to this, and the other one will come in your feed, 12, 24 hours later, something like that. How you doing, my friend? You ready? You ready for a whole bunch of podcasting divided by 2?
Yeah, well, real quick, yesterday, Jason, the reason why we couldn't record yesterday is I went to the City Open, which is the tennis tournament here in DC. It's the only tournament in the world that is both a WTA on the women's side and an ATP event at the same time. So my friends go every year, and I've always had something come up where I'm not able to go. But this year, I was able to take the entire afternoon off and go to the City Open. Jason, it was awesome. It was my second tennis tournament. I've been to the French Open before, and I only saw two matches there. But this time it was a bunch of different players. But the ones you may have heard of, Daniil Medvedev, one of the top players in the world, got to watch him play in center court. Got to see Venus Williams for the first time ever. She was playing at doubles yesterday, which is just a sight. She was kind of playing on a side court, so we kind of went into the side court and watched the match previous to that, so that we would have a great seat. And Jason, let me tell you, if you watched the match, I don't know if you did, but if you were able to watch the match, if you know what a general match looks like, where they're facing, towards the court long ways, I was on the end line where the TV side was, and if you saw any play, you saw my face just going back and forth, which was awesome. And then their cap of that is, of course, Francis Tiafoe, who was from DC, from the DC area. He was the nightcap. He was the last match of the night. We got to see him in the stadium. So really, really cool event. Really enjoyed doing it. I don't know why it took me so long to do it, but I will try to make it an every year deal now, because it was that fun.
That's very cool. I am glad you enjoyed that, my friend. All right, so let's get to the Duke news. And yeah, I mean, some of you are going to say, hey, I heard this a few days ago. I know, I'm sorry. We're a little late on some of it, but we're here to comment on it. And maybe you haven't heard all the news. Regardless, you definitely haven't heard our thoughts on it. First thing up, we're getting some more scheduling news, specifically the exhibition, specifically what Duke is going to be doing in the preseason. And man, it is, you thought the regular season schedule was impressive. Duke's really biting off something here in the preseason. It's going to begin on October 21. That is a Tuesday. And the Blue Devils will be playing the Brotherhood run against Johnny Dawkins and Central Florida, a Big 12 team. Duke battling a fellow Power 5 conference team, somewhat similar to what we did last year when we played Arizona State and Bobby Hurley, two of the great guards from the 1980s, 1990s, coming back to back to Durham with Johnny Dawkins the same way Bobby Hurley did a year ago. Very exciting. And then Duke follows that up on Sunday, October 26th. Duke will be playing an exhibition against Tennessee, a team that has consistently been in the top 10 over the past several years. One of the top teams in the Southeastern Conference, a team that contends for the Final Four every season, a real serious test for the Blue Devils. And we don't even have we've got a serious test in our first exhibition as well. It's Donald. It is John Shire taking all the smoke, right?
I don't know if there's any smoke left for him to take. Like, he's taken it all. But I will start, Jason. I think the biggest one is the fact that, I think you left this out, the Tennessee exhibition is on the road. We had heard
Sorry. Thank you.
Directly from John Shire that he had been scheduling, I think it was on the Crazy Cast, that he was scheduling a road exhibition game at a Power 5 school. He didn't tell us it was Tennessee. That is a major, major get. And also, Jason, we had received wind of this a couple of nights before the rumors kind of got out.
Yeah.
But also involved in this is that this could turn into a rarity, an exhibition home and home, where we would go to Tennessee, and then next year during the preseason, Tennessee would come to Cameron. So I think that right there is very interesting because one, you don't really see those on the road, or I'm sorry, in the exhibition for sure. And to schedule a team like that and kind of say, hey, I know we can't fit you in the regular season, but let's figure out a way to play. That is great because it's going to obviously help both teams. But for Duke, it just shows that they will take on anybody, anytime, anywhere. They are trying to figure out how to fit this schedule matrix, and they will take on all comers. And in the case of Johnny Dawkins and UCF, I think, again, I love that they did this last year with Bobby Hurley and Arizona State. We had talked about how they're doing it in the regular season as well. We got Niagara and Howard coming to town. That's
Kenny Blakely and
very cool.
And Greg Paulus, yeah.
Yeah, so that part's cool. And honestly, when we announced the Brotherhood run during the regular season, I thought, oh, okay, well, that's going to replace the one during the preseason. And I was like, I wish this was during the preseason because I would love to be able to show them love during this game. But now we have that opportunity. We get that opportunity with Johnny Dawkins, who is arguably we saw it in the survey that we did, Jason. He is one of the most popular, one of the most important players in the history of Duke basketball. So for him to return to get his flowers, I think is awesome. So really looking forward to this. And again, like you said, it just shows that there will be no stopping from the moment that practice officially begins. The fall practice time officially begins in late September. These guys will be taking on all challengers, and they will be arguably the toughest schedule in Duke's history. So I'm looking forward to all this. And again, this gives us more opportunity to be excited about the season before the season even starts.
Yeah, and on the one hand, you can sort of one of the things that I wonder about this stuff, when you play a team like a Tennessee, okay, it's an exhibition, but does it kind of count a little bit? Do the AP voters and the such, do they pay attention to that? I know it won't get factored into what the NCAA selection committee looks at, but does it affect your perception perhaps a little bit? My bet will be that you would see maybe a little bit of a wider rotation from John Shire, a little more experimentation. It will still be an exhibition, but it's going to be a really good yard marker, so to speak, to see where this team is in late October. And then, we're going to have a chance, obviously, over the next month and a half, where Duke plays 7. I guess actually in that period we'll be playing 6 other Power Conference teams. We play Michigan, not the 7th one we play in February. But you're going to get to see how this team grows because, like all Duke teams, they are young. They're going to have to come together and figure things out. I think it's a really, really interesting situation to be trying something like this. I'm dying to see sort of how Shire attacks it if he experiments more or if he plays it like a real game. How much is there to learn? And I love that the NCAA, by the way, has changed things up. A few years ago, Duke played Houston a couple of years in a row. We played Villanova. but none of us got to see those games. They were the so-called secret scrimmages. Well, the NCAA is like, nah, there's no. Why are we doing this? Let's get some money from these. Let's televise them. I guarantee you're going to see. Um, my bet is you'll probably see, the UCF game maybe on ESPN3 streaming kind of situation. I'm not sure that one's going to generate an actual, national cable audience. Maybe the ACC network, maybe, but that Tennessee game for sure is going to go on. Actually, probably on the SEC network, if I had to bet, because Duke won't have the rights to it the same way Tennessee does. But that's going to get a lot of attention.
I also think I agree with you. I was just going to mention the fact that we had these secret scrimmages, and now you and I can take our fly costumes back to the store, back to Party City, so we don't have to be the fly on the wall, or at least try to be the fly on the wall in those secret scrimmages. Those are out in the open. I also think, as you mentioned, not just the monetary portion of this, there's also the charitable component of this. Last year, the Arizona State game was, a charity run where all the proceeds of ticket sales went towards Duke Children's. I'm assuming they're going to do something similar for the Brotherhood run this year, and then also Tennessee may have something going on for their game at when we go down to Thompson Bowling, which is, Jason, the third largest arena in college basketball. The other two are in the ACC, and we will be there this year. That's the Yum Center and that's the Dean Smith Center. So I like the fact that they're going on the road. They're going to get that hostile exposure, and I think that is what John Shire is looking for. He does not want to come to ACC season and be like, hey, these guys have not been tested up and down. He wants to enter the ACC with a purpose, and he wants this team to be able to challenge themselves and know that when there's DUKE on the front of your jersey, there are no nights off. No team is going to give you the benefit of the doubt. No team is going to let you waltz over them. They're going to bring you their A game, and though he's going to get a lot of these types of games in there. So I'm looking forward to this, and also, Jason, in future years. This kind of tells the tale of what John Shire is going to want to do with his teams, and that just creates even more excitement for Duke basketball fans, because we're going to see these types of games year in and year out, and we are going to be tested, and we won't have to worry about where Duke falls in this hierarchy of college basketball teams. We know that we're near the top, but we also are going to test ourselves against the best of the rest.
Hey, so I want to move on to our next topic, which is a member of the Brotherhood who gets a plum new job. You could see a Brotherhood run, perhaps involving this guy fairly soon. It is Nolan Smith, a absolutely beloved member of the 2010 national championship team, a guy who was on Coach K's staff, a guy who, has just been part of the Duke program for a long, long time. He left for a little while, went off to Louisville, went off to Memphis, and now has gotten a head coaching gig. He is the head coach at Tennessee State. Now, it would be real easy, I think, if you are not someone who pays a lot of attention to college basketball, to think Tennessee State is a small-time program, that Nolan Smith is going to a program that is not very prestigious. And it's worth noting, I mean, Tennessee State, I looked it up, has been in the NCAA tournament only twice in its history. The last time the Tigers made the NCAA tournament was 31 years ago. They played Kentucky. They lost in the first round. This is not a program that has a deep basketball history. But, Donald, I'm sure you're going to expound on this a little bit. This is a very well-regarded HBCU with some powerful alumni, powerful people who've been associated with the program in the past. And it is not a basketball program that is a constant doormat. They've had winning records. They haven't made the NCAA tournament, but they've had winning records a lot. This is a team that almost always gets to double-digit wins and contends in their conference. They haven't broken through, like I say, and made the tournament, but it's a program that has a pretty decent history. And my understanding is that they bring back 3 starters from last year. They're bringing back like 7 or so guys who were, part of the rotation a year ago. That's an impressive returning cast. Nolan got this gig in July. I mean, it is really late in the process. There's no way I guess he could be trying to find something, in the portal or a foreign player or something like that. It's going to be, but basically he's rolling with what he's got right now. But I'm very excited to see what Nolan Smith does with this program over the next few years. Before I get it to you, Donald, I do want to mention one thing. from the introductory press conference, the athletic director said that he'd spoken to Coach K about Nolan Smith, and that Coach K said Nolan is a guy with a special ability to attract people and lead them. And they talked about the fact that Nolan lights up the room. He knows how to connect, and he's going to be a phenomenal recruiter. And I'm very excited to see what he does there at Tennessee State. I won't be surprised if we're talking about this program a heck of a lot more than anyone talked about Tennessee State in the past.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations to him. I think honestly, Jason, leaving Duke to go to Louisville, which is his second home, right? His dad was on the 1980 national championship team.
Yeah.
And then once again having to leave home to go somewhere new and going to Memphis, and Memphis, had his bags of problems. But Nolan Smith was never one of them. And I think now moving 4 hours up a couple hours down the road to Nashville and Tennessee State, he's going to have his eye on some Tennessee talent. He's going to have his eyes on, guys from Georgia, guys from Alabama, guys from Louisiana who can play ball. And I think the one thing, as you mentioned, is that he lights up a room. When we talk to him, when we see him on the street, anybody who has talked to Nolan Smith knows that he can capture your attention in a positive way. And I think that is very helpful to, for him. And I'm glad that he's getting this start at this kind of level, right? Because I think this is where he can really change a program around. You mentioned they haven't been to the NCAA tournament in a very long time, over 3 decades. He's the type of guy that can build up a program to the point where it's not only a team that can compete to get to the NCAA tournament, but also one that will be sustainable whenever he decides to leave or whenever the next opportunity for him comes up. You mentioned some of the power that Tennessee State has. And Tennessee State is very big in the HBCU world, but they also have some incredible alums. Probably the one that you've most heard of
Call
is
her
one
name.
Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, say the name, baby.
I said her last name because I'm a man of respect, and you pronounce someone by their first government, the full government name. But Oprah is synonymous with everything that is positive about this world. So the fact that he can tap into resources like that, and we're not just talking about money, Jace. We're talking about influence, opening doors in places that they may not have gone to. I'm not saying that Chicago is going to be his next Graceland when it comes to recruiting talent, but Oprah's there. He could give him a call and say, hey, let me come on the show and have these opportunities. But also, Jason, they're very big in the political world down there. They have a lot of political, got people in government, state government in Tennessee, national government, some former football players, a lot of Hall of Famers have gone through the doors of Tennessee State. My old neighbor, Carlos Rogers, played basketball at Tennessee State. So that's when I had, first started tapping into him. This is way back in the day. This is maybe before Nolan Smith was even born, that Carlos Rogers played there. But I think, Jason, that is where he starts to build this network. The one thing that HBCUs have always been lacking has been resources. And you need, they need, and Kenny Blakeney's talked about that on the show, the creativity that he kind of has to use.
Yeah.
To build the program up the way it needs to be built to be sustainable. You need to have a coach who's in tap with the kids, who can adapt to the circumstances, who can adapt to this changing NIL world. And that is where Nolan Smith, I think, can be a very net positive for Tennessee State and kind of making where this program at Tennessee State has a foundation, but also then can tap into some of those resources that may not have been available before to say, hey, if we want to get the budding talent that we want into Tennessee State, this is the NIL budget we need to create. This is where do we need to go get this? Where do we need to improve the facilities? Those things that he has thought about because he has been at the pinnacle of college basketball when it comes to facilities, when it comes to NIL budgets and all of that, to now a team that is looking to try and expand to, they're not trying to, I think the thing about this is he's not trying to win a national championship in year one. He's just trying to win a conference championship in the first couple of years. And to do that, he's going to build something up. And I really look forward to watching him do it. Tennessee State, I'm not sure when it was, Jason, but we did play them in the last, I want to say 10 years in Cameron. And I remember the coach back then saying how much of a pivotal experience that was for that program to see what it meant to be on the court with some of the best basketball players in the country, the best team in the country, and what it takes to get to that level. Now they don't have to come to Cameron to do that. They could just go to the head coach's office and understand what it is like to be a part of a program that's special and build something from the ground up. So I'm really looking forward to watching Nolan do that.
Yeah, the other interesting thing is what he does with his staff. Now, there was a staff already in place, and for the most part, my bet is that he keeps those folks around. But he's going to have his eye out there. There are people in the coaching profession he's worked with over the years that maybe he's interested in bringing along with him at some point. As I mentioned, it's late in the process. It's not a time to be making huge, great changes. At Duke, we're already heavy into summer practices and such. Nolan only arrived on campus a couple days ago, so it's a situation where change may not come quickly, but there's gonna be opportunities there for Nolan to do some interesting things. And as always on the DBR podcast, we wish all the Dukies out there who are now elsewhere other than Durham, we wish them great luck in their coaching profession and such. Look, we're talking a little bit about how Nolan would be as a recruiter. We're going to take a quick break, but on the other side, we got a little bit of recruiting intel for you. Why has nobody signed with Duke so far from the class of 2026? We'll get into that a little bit, as well as the names of the guys that Duke is looking at in just a moment.
Summer is here. More sun, way more heat, more time to do all the things that make summer so special. And the number one thing you don't want to be doing all summer? Spending hours cooking. That's where Factor can help. Factor's chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and delicious meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well.
Boy, that's right, Donald. Not only are they quick to heat up, you have a lot of options. You're not stuck with the same leftovers for the entire week. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. And if you're someone who does meal prep for the week, Factor's variety of options means you can have something different every single day, and you don't have to cook. Now you can get outside and enjoy some time with your loved ones.
So get started at factormeals.com/DukeBB50 off. Use that code DukeBB50 off to get 50% off, plus free shipping on your first box. Again, that's factormeals.com/DukeBB50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Once again, factormeals.com/DukeBB50 off.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
9 años pidiendo el snack wrap. Aquí tienes tu snack wrap. ¿Tú quieres un snack wrap? Toma tu snack wrap. ¿Tú también? Toma un snack wrap. Snack wrap, snack wrap, snack wrap. Volvió el snack wrap. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Are your business expenses playing hide and seek? With Uber for Business, the small spends that slip through the cracks, like rides and meals, go right where you need them. Because it integrates with leading expense platforms, you can say goodbye to surprise costs, missing dollars, or chasing receipts. Everything's track downable. Uber for Business. Make small steps that make a big impact. Learn more at uber.com/small steps.
All right, we're back from the break, and we got to talk about a little bit of recruiting. The Peach Jam wrapped up in just the past few days. This is the big EYBL tournament, the Nike tournament, the AAU tournament that happens in Augusta every year. It gets the majority of the best players, not all the best players. Look, on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the fact that Nick Jimenia played his AAU ball for a team in the Puma League, which I honestly didn't even know there was a Puma ACC AAU league. You hear a lot about Nike, you hear a lot about Adidas. There's also a little talk. In fact, I'll get into a little bit of talk about Under Armour has a league. I didn't even know that Puma had a league. But in any event, the Peach Jam's considered the biggest of the big. And Donald, my voice is probably going to go out here. I don't know why I'm playing host right now. I should let you be tossing stuff to me.
Tell me about recruiting, Jason, and then
yeah, thank you very much. All right,
it's still the same 5 minutes. So
yeah. So let me get into. I'm going to start with two names at each jam, who are guys who Duke is very, very much connected to, who I think Duke fans need to begin paying attention to. The first one is a 6'5" combo guard, Brandon McCoy. He has already visited Duke. The word is that Duke was considered the leader for Brandon McCoy for a long time. The word coming out of Peach Jam is that, Brandon McCoy wants to take all his visits. He wants to look at other schools. He wants to make sure. I think everyone still considers Duke to be the leader here. He's going to go check out USC, Alabama, Kansas, Michigan, Arkansas, NC State. By the way, NC State, Will Wade is he's doing some things on the recruiting trail out there. NC State's getting mentioned for the kind of guys that usually NC State is not mentioned for. So they're all involved in Brandon McCoy. Let me tell you a little about this guy. He was the third leading scorer at Peach Jam, averaging 22 points per game, 6.4 rebounds per game. I want to be very clear that he's a guy who needs to work on his game outside of the lane. Like, he's not yet a good three-point shooter. He only hit 58% of his free throws, only 28% of his threes. And ordinarily you'd look at that and go, oh, well, this is a guard who's problematic. You got to watch Brandon McCoy play to understand. Dude gets in the lane. He just gets to the basket, and it's just really hard to stop him from getting where he wants to go. He scored 22 points per game, Donald, by not hitting three-pointers. So, as you can imagine, just absolutely elite at getting to the rim. He had one game where he scored 38 points on 13 of 17 shooting.
That's I'm doing math. That's incredible. I'm doing math.
That is,
I don't know how you do that.
Yeah. He is super long. He has a super fast first step, and just is incredibly creative around the basket. By the way, he averaged almost 3 stocks, steals plus blocks. He's so long that he just affects things on defense in a very, very big way. This is an outstanding player. He just dominated at times at the Peach Jam, and would be a really, really, even though he's not a great outside shooter, he'd be a really exciting player to have in Durham. The next guy I'm going to mention, you're going to kind of go, wait a second, that sounds like you're talking about the same guy. Well, go ahead,
Jason. Before I mention that, I think the couple takeaways that I have from that, and I didn't get to see the Peach Jam because there's been so much going on, but the one thing is the height, 6'5". Again, looks like we have a prerequisite here of height, which is fun. But I also think some of the things you mentioned that maybe his detriments are things that are easily correctable. And I think the most correctable thing is the free throw line. If you're going to go into the lane and slash, if you're not going to shoot threes, you're going to go in the lane and slash. That's fine. There's guards who do that and make a nice living off of that. But you're going to get fouled. You're going to get sent to the line, and you have to knock down your free throws. So even if he's not shooting 40% from three, if he's shooting 70% from the line, that would make it much better, because then again, if you're slashing, teams now got to worry about you getting them into foul trouble. And I think that's where he can probably improve his game a little next year. But again, that's something that's easily correctable, in my opinion.
Yeah, and look, we're talking about a guy he's widely considered the number 2 player in the class. Mm-hmm. So, yes, there are some flaws in his game, but he's a hell of a player. The guy who's considered the number 3 player in the class is Jordan Smith Jr. Now, Donald, you talked about height. Jordan Smith's 6'2". So, like, maybe, yeah. Maybe say, wait a second, that rules him out for Duke. He's 6'2". He's got a 6'9" wingspan.
Oh, okay. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Never mind.
Jordan Smith Jr. has already visited Duke, and Duke is definitely seen as the leader here. If I had to guess, someone who might be the first player to commit to Duke from the class of 2026. It is Jordan Smith Jr. There is talk that Arkansas is really making a push on him. He's got a visit scheduled for Kentucky, but everyone says Jordan Smith Jr. is probably coming to Duke. And 6'2" guard, unbelievable length and quickness, averaged better than 20 points per game in EYBL play. He averaged 7.4 rebounds per game. He's 6'2", and he averaged 7.5 rebounds per game. What are we talking about? Average 4.5, almost 4.5 assists per game, the sixth most assists of anybody at Peach Jam. And the guys ahead of him are not big scorers. They're guys who score like 12, 13 points. He's scoring 20 points per game and getting 4.5 assists per game and 7.5 rebounds per game at 6'2", Donald. Averages almost 2.5 steals a game. Averages almost 2 blocks per game. Yes, 6'2", averages almost 2 blocks per game. What are we even talking about here? This guy gets to the rim in ways I've watched him. I've watched games, and it's just like he just magically suddenly appears he has the ball in his hand, and there's a defender in front of him, and suddenly the defender's like, where'd he go? I've lost him. He's getting a layup. What's going on here? Doesn't take a lot of threes. He's not a good three-point shooter yet. Sort of, I described Brandon McCoy. Same thing on Jordan Smith Jr. Not a great outside shooter. But Jordan Smith Jr. shot better than 60% on his 2-point field goals over the entire EYBL season. At Peach Jam itself, he shot like 65, 67%. Just an outrageous figure. Teams know what he's trying to do. They go, okay, let's pack a bunch of guys in here. Let's make sure he doesn't get to the rim. Let's make sure he doesn't get in the lane. They can't stop him. It doesn't matter. A dude who scores 2/3 of the time when he goes in the lane is a pretty valuable player to have. And by the way, I mentioned the assists. When teams slough off, and they have to, you can't guard him one-on-one. When they slough off, when they try to stop him from getting in the lane, he is very, very good at finding the open teammate on the perimeter. Jordan Smith Jr. is he's a problem on both ends of the floor with that length.
I think the one thing that I'm always curious about when someone's short is how they're getting those rebounds, right? And I get he has a 6'9" wingspan. He may be able to jump out of the gym, but when you're 6'2", it doesn't matter, right? We saw a bunch of 6'8", 6'9" guys go up against man, and man would just kind of reach over him, grab the rebound, and come down softly. You'd see Cooper Flagg reach over him, grab the rebound, come down, and go the other way. I think the positioning is something that I would like to look forward to watching him over the next year, because that positioning is everything when it comes to guards getting rebounds. And the great thing, Jason, is one thing that we have had over the last few years have been guards that can get rebounds. From Jared McCain, last year, Sion James was able to get rebounds, pretty often. We have at least one guy who's able to, whenever teams take all those long threes and they get long rebounds, you need a guard who's going to be able to get those long rebounds. I like that. I also like the fact that he's good with, stealing the ball, blocks, that sort of thing. But I also think when you're surrounding yourself, it also, the type of guys that those two players are, leads me to believe that they are thinking about this year's team and who might be remaining at the end of the year, where there could be, yeah. I mean, we have a whole squad of shooters this year, right? So how many are going to stick around? And I think that is the test here, because if you have a guy that can slash and pass, and you have 3 other guys on the wing that are waiting to receive the ball and hit open threes, we have a bunch of those guys that are expected to do that this year. If some of those guys remain beyond this year, that is telling with how they're going with regards to recruiting these two guys.
I just want to really quickly mention 3 different guys whose last names are going to be very familiar to Duke fans. The first one is Zeke Battier, Shane Battier's son. Now, he played on the Under Armour circuit. His team was incredibly successful playing on the Under Armour circuit. I believe they played, I forget if I think they lost in the championship game, but functionally Under Armour had, their equivalent to the Peach Jam, and Zeke Battier's team made it all the way to the very end. He's a 16-year-old. He's 16U. So we're not talking about a guy who's currently a rising senior. He's a rising junior. I think I have that right. God, he may even be a year younger. I may be off on that. I forget. But in any event, Zeke's team was very, very successful. He was a key part of that team. He's not someone, though, that seems like he's going to be a high major recruit. He may decide that he wants to go to Duke. He may get better. And, he and Shane may say, yeah, we're going to, we want to try Duke anyway. But he's not someone who would ordinarily be on Duke's radar. But great to see his team having success. And by the way, Shane was one of the assistant coaches. He might have been the head coach. I think I saw that he was an assistant coach on that team that did so well. All of us want Shane Battier to get into coaching. We all have visions of Shane on the Duke bench, I think, someday, although not to say John Shire's doing a great job, of course, but you know what I'm saying.
Jason, you want to know how old we are? Zeke Battier is 16 years old. That's how old we are. I remember the announcement when he was born. That is terrifying to me, that he is almost in college, and that but I think the fact that he is being recruited is something that does not surprise me. If he's in that level, the fact that he's playing AAU ball and getting some looks, that is not surprising to me. I am going to go after this podcast, Jason. You see, I don't have that much hair, but I'm going to shave the rest of my gray hairs off, because that is what you saying Zeke Battier conjures in my mind. This little kid that has now sprouted up to being a young man who is on the verge of going to college and playing basketball wherever he goes, I think is simply incredible. And it's I think the one thing we have to preach with him and with the other two that you're going to mention is the word patience, right? Because it's same with the Boozers, right? The Boozers, you have this thing where we think, hear the word Boozer, we don't think of the Boozer twins, we think of their dad, and that's not fair to them, and it's not fair to Carlos either. And so when it comes to Zeke and the other two that you're going to mention, I want us to preach of patience and let them continue their journey, kind of untouched, so to speak, and let them create their own path, because that's what they're going to have to do. And I think what's great is they both come from families that have preached that and are part of this generation where they can, allow them to pursue their own path. And I would love to, of course, I'd love to see Zeke in a Duke uniform. I'm sure Shane would love to see it in a Duke uniform. But if it doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that he is any worse or any better than what Shane was. Zeke is going to have his own future, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, exactly. I regret I didn't have all my notes up on Zeke. I may have his class wrong. I know he's not a senior. He may be a junior. He might be a sophomore. I'm just not 100% clear. I apologize. I can look it up and, anyway. The other guys I wanted to mention are a pair of Con Knippel's younger brothers. Cager Knippel, who is a current junior. He's also 16U. And Kinston Knippel. Kinston's 15U. He's a current sophomore. I want to talk about Cager first. Cager played at the Peach Jam in the 16U tournament, and his team reached the finals. They lost in the finals of the 16U tournament at the Peach Jam, which is a super big deal, a really, really tough tournament, and playing against the absolute top juniors in the country. Now, his team is a bunch of Wisconsin kids. It may be like one of the best Wisconsin classes of all time. Cager is considered like a top 125-ish kind of recruit. And he has 3 teammates who are all top 100 recruits from the state of Wisconsin. It is a really, really strong team. He was kind of the designated outside shooter for that team. During the AAU season, he hit 43% of his 3-point shots, which is very impressive. He's bigger than Con. He's close to 6'9" already. And he's playing like a power forward at the AAU level, and he's a stretch 4. I don't know that he's a great fit at Duke. There's some athleticism questions there. He was injured a lot this season, so it felt like every time he'd start to get on a little bit of a roll, he would have a setback where he had a hamstring injury, and it would feel like maybe he took a little step back in playing time and things like that because he was battling injuries. I'm going to be very interested in sort of seeing where the scouts sort of rank him. Like I said, he's like a top 125 or so recruit at the moment, and I wonder if that'll move up a bit for him. He's not the ball handler that Con appeared to be, And he's not as creative with the ball in terms of finding teammates and things like that. Very different player, I think, than Khan, but a heck of an outside shooter and a big kid in a big frame, Knipple, so it's worth paying attention to a little bit.
I think the great thing for him is that he just has to look down the road at his brother, who's now with the Hornets. And a year and a half ago, that was not in the cards, and it definitely wasn't in the cards at the fourth or fifth pick in the draft. So I think that he, at least if he has a quarter of the competitiveness that Khan has, he's going to be all right, and we're going to see him move up the rankings, and maybe he is one of those guys who is a diamond in the rough, and as he continues to grow and blossom into his game, people start to take note that yes, the trajectory is similar. So I think with him, and I think Jason, I think back to when we had Khan's mom on here right before the Final Four.
Yeah.
And Sherry was like, well, they're not at the Final Four because they have AAU this weekend.
Exactly.
So they got that part down, right? And we were even say like, hey, if there's one game you got to miss, it's for the Final Four. And they were like, nope, they're going to be competing, and that's what we do in this family is compete. So I'm not counting him out at all.
So the third of there are five, by the way, there are five Knipple brothers, and the third of them is Kinston. And John Shire, Kinston plays 15U, like I said. He was at the Peach Jam. These are kids in the class of 2028. And John Shire went and watched one of Kinston's games. Now, John was also probably watching a kid named Colton Hiller, who is a top 5 player in that class and a really, really impressive player that John is clearly interested in. But Kinston had a really impressive Peach Jam as well. And, there aren't really, I don't pay attention to, there aren't really rankings of players at that level yet. And I want to be clear that Kinston is not yet a kid that everyone's like, oh, this guy's going to a huge power conference program. But he had a couple games where he played really well for his 15U team. Now, his 15U team, unlike his big brother, his team wasn't nearly as successful. And they sort of got knocked out of the elite end of the tournament. But there was a space in his program to play in like a consolation tournament with 17-year-old kids. Again, Kinston's 15, but they said, hey, why don't you play with the 17U team in the consolation tournament, the NIT, essentially, of the EYBL. And Kinston had a couple games. He had a couple games where he scored 13 plus points, where he's grabbing like 5, 7, 8 rebounds, playing with 17-year-old players. He's another kid who has a really nice outside shot. I saw him, the couple games where he hit like, more than half of his 3-pointers. Really, really, interesting summer for him. He ended up hitting better than 38% of his 3-pointers, grabbed a lot of rebounds. He's got a really nice frame for a kid who's only 15. And, another guy that keep an eye on him. And we should know, look, we have no idea whether Knipples, Battiers, these guys are not automatically guys who are necessarily interested in Duke. A lot of them they may say, I want to carve my own path. But on the other hand, the Boozer twins are here right now. So that's why I brought up these names. I want people to know a little bit about them. I guess they are sort of cousins of the Brotherhood, so to speak, at this point, or something like that. But we'll be watching all of them and see how things progress for them. None of these, neither Battier nor the Knipples have gotten offers from Duke yet. But John Shire's watching and just sort of seeing, maybe, does this guy make sense? And the last thing I would say is, even if they don't get to be top 100 recruits or whatever, you never know when someone goes, you know what, I'm going to take the Justin Robinson route and see how that works out for me. You never know.
And honestly, in this day and age, you don't really that may be going bye-bye in a traditional sense. Like the Spencer Hubbards of the world aren't necessarily going to be around at every single program, which I know Wheelan meant in a way, but I also think because of how competitive this is in the NIL world, you can get these guys and pay them a little bit to sit on the end of the bench and bring them in a pinch. But I think they're going to be able to chart their own path wherever that is. I think we all hope it would be at Duke. I think it'd be great to see a pipeline of Knipples and Battiers, and every other great that has ever graced Duke's presence. Like having those pipelines is a thing. Shout out Spencer Harvard, as we mentioned, for the Harvard Westlake pipeline and getting Nick Minia. Like that works. We'll take all the pipelines of great talent that we can get. But I also think that we also still have to remain competitive in all of these. Just because, just like you said, just because they're a Battier or a Knipple doesn't mean they're coming to Duke. And also, as you mentioned, just because they have those last names doesn't mean they want to come to Duke. So we have to sell ourselves on why this is the best place. And more famously for the Boozer twins, we had to sell them on the create your own legacy path and say, hey, you can do that at a university where your dad was so prominent and won a national championship. You can have your own legacy here, and we will help you chart that, whatever it may be. So I'm looking forward to seeing them grow and develop and play with their high school teams. And maybe down the line, we will be talking about them in a more official capacity as recruits to Duke University.
You're talking about the legacy and the pipeline, all that other stuff. I completely forgot something I had to mention about Jordan Smith Jr. Donald, do you know where he goes to school?
I do not.
Hold on. What do you know?
No.
All right. If I had to say to you, hey, he goes to a school that is a pipeline to Duke, where do you think he goes?
A pipeline to Duke?
Yeah.
We have so many.
Dude, come on. I'm going to say it, and you're going to be like, how did I not say that school?
Glenbrook North.
PVI.
Oh, it goes PVI. Yeah.
He goes to PVI.
Well, you know what's funny, Jason,
6th.
is PVI has become this secret one. I know he's one. There's also another guy, and I forgot his name. There's another guy PVI that Duke is looking at too. Well, it's very funny. There's going to be
Jeremy Roach, Trevor Keels, Darren Harris, Patrick Gongba.
Mm-hmm.
Lately, if you go to PVI and you're a great player, your career continues in Durham. So it
looks great. I need to get these. I need to get these PVI credentials popping.
There you go, baby. So Jordan Smith goes to like I said, everyone thinks Jordan Smith's a Duke lead. Maybe they think that because he went to PVI, which has a pipeline to Durham. Okay, with that, we're going to wrap it up here on DBR Bites. Like I said, we're going to have another one of these coming at you in just a moment. So stick around. I'm Jason. He's Donald. Here's the Duke band playing us out and taking us home. All right, so dude, I got to see the new Fantastic Four movie the other day.
I hear, before you say anything,
yes,
I have heard that if there's a Marvel is back type of moment, that Fantastic Four might be that movie. Do you what did you think?
Yeah,
because I've heard a lot of great things about it.
No, 100%. In fact, I wrote in my my little 100-word review. I said this feels like the Marvel sort of getting its mojo back. I think it's Marvel's best movie since Endgame, which is not a high bar.
Right, yeah. I mean, Endgame was I think that also the problem with Endgame is that it was such a finality that people all of a sudden were like, "Oh, wait, there's more? I haven't got over this. I need to."
Yeah, they probably should have. They probably should have just reset everything at that point.
Yeah, just take a couple years off. I mean, I get it. Every time you put Marvel
they're not taking
across something, it's $1 billion. Yeah,
they're yeah. But this movie's I mean, the really nice thing is that you don't have to. There's no homework. You don't have to have seen any TV shows. You don't have to have seen any other Marvel movies. It is completely standalone. I know it's going to launch a lot of stuff going into the future, but this sort of is their reset because it is set in a completely different world. And the other thing is, I love that. First of all, it's like an hour and 45, hour and 50 minutes. They hadn't made a movie that was less than 2.5 hours in forever. I'm like, yes, finally. And the nice thing is, it's not just a bunch of CGI action BS. It really, it's about the characters. In fact, they're like maybe 2 or 3 action scenes. There's just not that much. It is mostly just. I mean, it's a story about family, and it's mostly about family, and I loved that. I really, works. It works nicely.
I've been a fan of the Fantastic Four for a long time. I've seen the original one they did, what was like 2011 or something like that. Um, I even saw the one with Miles Teller and Michael B. Jordan,
Yeah,
which wasn't as great.
Great cast, really bad movie. A friend of mine
yeah,
said.
but I'm
A friend of mine said that's Zack Snyder's Fantastic Four. Like it's so dark and
right,
depressing.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I am looking forward to watching this one. I still need to see Superman. Again, heard great things about Superman. I have to catch up on my movies. It's been a soccer summer for me, so I got to get back to
really
it.
quick. The difference in Fantastic Four and Superman, both of them are really, really good. Both of them are great resets for DC and Marvel. I think Superman, because he's a little more of a universal character. Like I'm gonna take my wife to see I've already seen it, but I'm gonna go see it again, and I'm gonna take my wife, and she's excited to see it. And because of James Gunn, it's got a lot of humor. So Superman, like I think, is a date movie. Anyone can enjoy it. Fantastic Four still pretty comic booky. There's a lot of cosmic kind of stuff in it, and I think you've got to be a little bit of a sci-fi kind. Like I wouldn't even consider taking my wife to see it. So that's the difference in the two of them.
Well, I did tell you on a couple episodes ago when you talked about Superman. I told you, yes, Mrs. Evans is the exception, but like PSA, don't make that a date movie. Don't think that you could compete with Superman. They will leave you for Superman.
Truth spoken.